On this exciting episode, Otto Kruger stars as a man who can't judge character, all while he pretends to be cuckoo. Plus, Burt Reynolds stars as an unofficial nephew to Uncle Gus. Guess who the Della's gonna be for this episode? It's Perry Mason, Season 5, Episode 27, The Case of the Counterfeit Crank. Welcome to the Perry Pod. I'm your humble host, Jonathan Searcy. My purpose, pretty simple, provide an audio companion to every episode of television's greatest legal drama, Perry Mason. Each episode, we give you a summary of the plot, and even compare plots with the Earl Stanley Gardner novel if the episode was an adaptation. We give you a little trivia, reveal the episode's theme, and revel in a Perry proverb. That's a pearl of wisdom from the man himself. Before we head to the water cooler where, just like Perry, Della, and Paul, we can discuss the ins and outs of our fave legal cruise adventures. But first, say it with me, to the Law Library! Every time we visit the Law Library, we investigate a legal conundrum from the episode in order to find precedents for future cases. In this Law Library visit, we take a look at a section of the California Probate Code. In court, Perry invokes a section from that code and summarizes it this way.
Your Honor, as you're well aware, in the appointment of guardians for insane or incompetent persons, Section 1461 of the California Probate Code provides that any relative or friend of the alleged insane or incompetent person may appear and oppose such petition.
Alas, Perry's not dealing from a fair deck. Section 1461 of the California Probate Code concerns notice requirements in guardianship and conservatorship proceedings, specifically when the ward or conservatee has been or is a patient of a state hospital. It's about the people in the hospitals informing, not the friends or relatives of the patient. I think that Perry is trying to recall Section Probate Code 2653, which states, quote, any relative or friend of the ward or conservatee and any interested person may appear at the hearing and support or oppose the petition, close quote. This is what Perry wants to mention, so he has the right to step in for Gus, should Gus give Perry his blessing. Just a note, later in this episode, we're going to see Della handing Perry a bunch of law books. And my supposition is that it's this missed probate code citation that sends Perry back to the books and gets Della some legal clerk work. What do you think? Now it's time for the full plot of this episode. The Case of the Counterfeit Crank. Otto Kruger stars as August Gus Dahlgren, a lovable old crank who's trying to give money away to his unmarried bank teller.
Now look here, you've just put that away for your kids.
Mr. Dahlgren, you know I'm not married.
Backstory: he's got a nephew named Kenny that he loves and a niece-in-law named Sandra he doesn't care for.
All I've got is a nephew and his wife. Of course, he's a fine boy. He's going to be all right. But as far as that wife of his is concerned, now, anytime you want a relative cheap, you just call me at my office, huh?
Back at Dahlgren Associates, we get news of his anti-Scrooge ways.
I'm afraid he signed another letter, Napoleon B. Santa Claus.
Once he's in the office, Gus calls his partners Fenton and Morley in and talks once again about his dream, Dahlgren Valley.
Look, if this brine well that we're digging comes in, it'll start an industry as big as Toronto, as big as Green River up in Wyoming. Chemical recovery plants for potash and soda. Housing for employees.
His partners aren't quite as simpatico with Gus's dreams as he might hope. Seems a bunch of money is missing from the company, and as soon as Fenton and Morley skedaddle, Dahlgren tosses cash out into the city street below. Now we meet the much ballyhooed Kenny, who surprisingly Wants to call Perry Mason? Classic misdirection.
Kenny, you're pretty concerned about your old Uncle Gus, aren't you, huh?
Please, Uncle Gus. This could be serious.
You know what it means to have somebody care for you. I mean, really care. You know, somebody who...
Please let me call Perry Mason.
All this is mere pretext to reinforce the big dichotomy in the episode. Gus loves Kenny and hates Sandra.
You know, Kenny, it wouldn't surprise me if your wife was hoping that I'd go to jail.
If it pleases you to think so, be my guest.
That's a fine thing to say to my uncle.
What should I say? That he was right to throw $2,000 in small bills out a window and cause a king-size traffic jam?
Don't mind her. She'll never understand me any more than she'd understand you.
Well, Gus has to show up in court on a misdemeanor Section 413. You know, for the whole tossing cash into a major LA intersection thing. When Don Morley tries to stand up for Gus, Gus says this.
I've never seen him before in my life.
Kenny and Sandra bicker about Gus. Then Fenton and Morley show up to ask if Kenny can make sure that Gus signs a letter to sell the Dahlgren Valley land. Kenny promises Gus will sign, then makes this ominous comment.
The court should be looking into his sanity before very long.
Now Burt Reynolds shows up to light a fire under the episode. Turns out he's the son of Secretary Jeanette Nolan. Good times. What do you have to say, Burt?
If he's out of his mind, then so am I.
In court, we get a definition of what it means to be legally incompetent, and then the doc gives us a breakdown of senile psychosis. Gus plays hard to like with his enigmatic quoting of Rudyard Kipling, and when Perry steps in, Gus starts talking about his wife Sarah before Perry has to remind Gus of something really important.
Mr. Dahlgren, Sarah's been dead for more than 10 years.
In conference, Perry talks about what Gus's performance will cost him, namely control over the company. That will go over to Kenny, and then Perry proceeds to compare himself to a Muslim ruler.
You're no more mentally incompetent than I'm the Caliph of Baghdad.
Here are Gus's orders. Sell a bunch of securities for $100,000 and put all that money back in the company. Kenny starts showing his true colors soon thereafter. First, he prohibits the securities move Gus wanted. Then he reveals that he's already approved the sale of Dahlgren Valley. Let's just say that when Gus hears the news, he's not too happy.
He did that to me. I'll kill him.
Such a threat is a death knell for Kenny and the defendant knell for old Gus. Perry learns that Gus has escaped the sanitarium. A teenager drops Gus off at Kenny's house, but when Perry shows up, no one's home but Sandra. When next we see Gus, he's asking Chuck, aka Burt Reynolds, for a favor. And Paul and Perry show up, followed by the cops. Seems the favor that Gus was asking Chuck to perform probably involved the dead body in the back of the station wagon. They killed Kenny! Perry presents Gus with the evidence against him.
You went to your nephew's house. Bloodstains, scuff marks, other bits of evidence prove he was shot to death in his house. You drove his station wagon out to the desert with his dead body in the back of the station wagon.
Gus is still trying to play the I'm cuckoo card.
There's fennel for you. And Columbine. There's rue for you.
And Perry lets him know where to get off.
You know, Gus, psychiatrists aren't completely stupid. It's even possible that some of them may be quite familiar with Hamlet and Ophelia's mad scene.
In convo with Fenton and Morley, Perry reveals that the dream of Dahlgren Valley was a long one. The mine was empty, making the land not worth very much. Perry asks Chuck's mom, Jeanette Nolan, to help him go over the company books. Next up is evil niece Sandra. Turns out she wasn't that big of a fan of Kenny.
I'm no angel, Mr. Mason. Also no hypocrite. I hated Ken Dahlgren in life. I won't cry for him in death.
That evening in concert with Jeanette Nolan, a.k.a. Martha Blair, Perry finds Manzanita Realty on the books. Why might it be important? Trag shows up and has a cute name for the company ledgers.
Well, I see you're working on your homework, Perry. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid this collection of McGuffey's readers will have to go.
In court, Hamilton Berger asks questions of Sandra about when she visited Gus at the sanitarium. and Perry asks her about the movie she attended.
I saw Too Soon Blues at the Tivoli Theater.
Fun fact, that's not a real movie. There is one called Too Late Blues that came out in 1961. It's an early John Cassavetes flick starring Bobby Darin. Next up is Fenton, talking about the missing cash, and Morley talking about the worthless mine and Gus's knowledge of same. Perry wins a hearsay argument about this testimony, and then Chuck shows up to talk about a government man interested in the land, and a military witness shows up to say that Gus wrote him a bunch of letters about using the land in Dahlgren Valley for an Air Force base. This case has got Perry so rattled, he's not eating.
Please, Perry, not eating isn't going to help Gus. It's only going to hurt you.
Paul dishes about Sandra and Don Morley. They're in love. Plus, there's a forger in the company, and he's mimicking 2 signatures. In what seems like a gigantic breach of courtroom etiquette, Hamilton launches into a closing statement before Perry has even put on a case.
Kenneth Dahlgren authorized the sale of that land, visualizing millions of dollars slipping away from him. The now enraged defendant, desperate to stop that sale, broke out of the sanitarium, rushed to his nephew, fought with him, and killed him. Your Honor, I move that August Dahlgren be bound over for trial in Superior Court on a charge of murder in the first degree.
What is Hamilton doing? And what's going on with that judge's mustache? Next, Perry starts calling witnesses. First up, Fenton lets us know that it's more than missing securities. Other things are missing from Dahlgren and Associates too. Then Miss Blair tells us what happened to all of these missing items. The diabolical Kenny!
Kenneth stole $100,000 from the trust fund accounts. I confronted him. He cried. He begged me to help him. He said he only borrowed the money to make an investment to impress his uncle. But he lied. He kept the money. He threatened to name me as his accomplice if I exposed him. I was afraid.
But that's not all. Why did Sandra go see Gus on the night of the murder? Because she found a suicide note written by Kenny in Kenny's pocket and attributed to Gus? The implications, Kenny was going to kill Gus and make it look like Gus took his own life. Now comes an almost unseen trial decision by Mason. He puts his own client on the stand.
I would like to call as our next witness the defendant, August Dahlgren.
Turns out Kenny had a partner in his malfeasance. Who was it?
He didn't have to forge his partner's signature. He didn't have to forge the name of
J. Fenton.
But that doesn't prove a thing.
Aren't you forgetting the detective agency, Mr. Fenton? The one which prepared that divorce material?
All right. All right, yes. I was in it with Ken.
Well, Fenton has his excuses.
And of planning to double-cross him. He was going to kill me. So I jumped at him. And we struggled. And the gun went off.
But Perry has his retorts.
You wouldn't have killed Gus, but you would have allowed him to go to the gas chamber.
Turns out Dahlgren City is going to be a thing right next to Dahlgren Air Force Base, and Gus has partners, Sandra and Don. But where's Bert? You did him wrong, Gus. Now, let's get trivial, shall we? Each episode in our trivia section, I give you 3 takeaways. A Paul is a subject worth investigating more. Adela is a deep dive on an actor or actress who guest starred in the episode. And finally, a Perry is something we learn about our intrepid hero. Our Paul for this episode concerns Gus Dahlgren's big plans for Dahlgren Valley.
It'll start an industry as big as Toronto, as big as Green River up in Wyoming.
Okay, is there any kind of historical precedent for the vision that Gus is offering here? Toronto? Green River? Why these cities? What do they have in common? What is this guy talking about? Tell us what you find, Pauls. Our Della for this episode could be none other than Burt Reynolds, a.k.a. Chuck Blair.
I just can't believe Mr. Dahlgren's unbalanced.
Here's 10 about Burt. 1. Born February 11th, 1936, Lansing, Michigan. 2. Burton Milo Reynolds Sr., an Army veteran who later became Chief of Police in Riviera Beach, Florida. Number 2. Attended Palm Beach High School, excelling in football, earned a scholarship to Florida State University where he played football until a knee injury ended his athletic career, transferred to Palm Beach Junior College. A teacher, Watson B. Duncan III, inspired Reynolds' interest in acting. He later won the 1956 Florida State Drama Award, which helped him study acting at the Hyde Park Playhouse in New York. Number 3. Appeared in TV roles, Riverboat, Perry Mason, Gunsmoke, Don August. His breakthrough role was as Louis Medlock in Deliverance, 1972. Number 4. Starred in box office hits like The Longest Yard, Smokey and the Bandit, Cannonball Run, Hooper, and Boogie Nights. Number 5. Graced the small screen again in the 1990s in the sitcom Evening Shade, 1990 to 1994. Number 6. Won awards, a Golden Globe and Emmy for Evening Shade, a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor in Boogie Nights, has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, multiple People's Choice Awards. Number 7. Had an often tumultuous personal life, including an especially high-profile scandal-ridden marriage and costly divorce with actress Lonnie Anderson. Number 8. Became a pop culture icon. Even beyond his film career, was affectionately spoofed by comedian Norm Macdonald on Saturday Night Live's Celebrity Jeopardy sketches, a parody which Reynolds enjoyed. Number 9. Married twice. First to Judy Carn, later to Lonnie Anderson. He adopted a son, Quentin, with Anderson. Number 10. Died September 6, 2018, at the age of 82 after suffering a heart attack while in Jupiter, Florida. Our Perry for this episode concerns our man's relationship with Sarah, Gus's deceased wife. Here's Gus's testimony.
My wife always liked you, Perry. I mean, she always said that you were the smartest, nicest man she ever knew.
Between this comment and Holly Cosgrove's comment in court, Perry's getting a lot of glow up here late in season 5. Way to go, Perry! The theme for this episode, counterfeits. Obviously, we've got Gus as a made-up crank, although one wonders, would anyone in their right mind have committed to memory those quotations from Rudyard Kipling and Ophelia from Shakespeare's Hamlet? Then there's Kenny, a fine boy we hear. He even resembles a fine boy in his care for Gus initially, but he's actually a philandering, conniving, forging no-goodnik. Unfortunately, I don't think Don Dubbins, the actor, is quite up to the task of portraying this counterfeit good guy. But what about the reverse counterfeit? You know, the people who appear bad, but are actually good. Morley and Sandra seem like villains, but they're counterfeits. They really love Gus. They really love each other. Let's hope Gus isn't taken in again when he makes them partners. Counterfeits don't work well with a military installation. Now, it's time for a Perry Proverb. So, we documented earlier in this episode how Perry doesn't know his probate law quite as well as he should. But there's one thing he does know, and that gives us this episode's Perry Proverb.
Remember, I'm incompetent.
I've told you before, insanity and incompetency are not the same thing. If you were declared incompetent to handle your own business affairs, that doesn't mean you would be immune from punishment for a crime you'd committed.
The price can be high for confusing the two. Thanks for reminding us, Perry. Keep this line handy, then ponder well the words of our titular counterfeit crank.
With everybody else in the world as crazy as they are, is there any question that I'm the only one who's sane?
Now it's time for a swig from the water cooler.
You know, there is one thing I don't understand.
Go on, Paul.
Each episode in the water cooler, we give you deleted scenes, bits from the episode that didn't quite make the episode's final cut. Number 1, Gus tries out different nom de plumes for his philanthropic ways. There's Shakespeare de Sales, St. Francis the Mule, Genghis Scrooge, and Billy the Rockefeller. Number 2, when she learns that Too Soon Blues doesn't actually exist, she was thinking of Too Late Blues, Sandra starts offering other films she's seen. Some Like It Tepid, Front Window, Hug of Evil, and A Metrobus Named Desire. Number 3, Gus is feeling so good, he makes Paul and Della partners too. Sandra, Don, Della, and Paul. It's a new sitcom. They make moolah from the Army base and from licensing fees. Our Paul from last time concerned electric cars. Sleuth Karen Osberg sent in info about Milburn electric cars and that you can find one in a museum in Lawrence, Kansas. The car was donated to the city by its owner, a woman named Eleanor Henley. The electric cars were popular among women. It doesn't have a steering wheel but uses levers, and the company made 4,000 of them in Toledo, Ohio from 1915 to 1923. Karen also shared that you can check out exhibits of electric cars at the Henry Ford Museum in Michigan. Great work, Karen! Dad Drake complimented this report with details on why the Henry Ford Museum in Michigan just might have examples of these early electric cars. That's because in the 1920s there were 3 companies that made electric cars: Milburn, Baker, and Detroit Electric. The dominant player in the 1920s electric car game was Detroit Electric. With these unique aspects: enclosed, plush, high-end interior, silent operation, nickel iron batteries that were developed by Thomas Edison himself, transmissionless drivetrains, and a 1920 Detroit Electric Model 82 Brougham sold at auction in 2016 for $66,000. Our range of value for a well-preserved model is between $48,000 or $99,000, and Dad Drake points out that this is a price comparable to that of a mid to high-end new Tesla. Thanks, Dad Drake. Aunt Mai shared an article from Car and Driver on the history of the electric car, which was a wonderful read, and it featured this passage, quote, "The electric car could go 25 miles per hour with a range of 80 miles, but by the time the 1923 Detroit Electric was built, the writing was on the wall for the early electric car business, and that company in particular. Detroit Electric started in 1907 and did well in competition against Baker and Milburn, even though the other 2 companies were more innovative. Even as internal combustion cars began to win the technology race, electric cars maintained a market, particularly in the cities where their silent operation and ease of use appealed to many. Often, drivers were women who didn't want to hand crank an engine to start it, so city shopping districts had charging stations to attract these affluent customers. The article goes on to point out that by the time Detroit Electric went under, its cars were 10 times more expensive than the Ford Model T. Great work, Pauls! Now it's time for a listener letter. We heard from trivia maven Nancy. Quote, "Hi, Jonathan. Just a few comments on the last few episodes. In The Absent Artist, when Della and Perry arrive at the party as they wait for the door to open, Barbara makes some kind of last-minute adjustment. I don't know if she's fixing her hair or taking off glasses or what. She can be seen through the frosted glass panel next to the door. In the case of the angry astronaut, I just wondered if the guy Perry has imitate voices was a real impersonator or not. Great question, Nancy. And finally, in the case of the borrowed baby, Dr. Hogarty says it was completely irregular for him to deliver Ginny's baby, but by 1959, California already had a Good Samaritan law. I would think that would have protected him. Also, Perry would have popped Paul one if he had proposed to Della. As always, thanks for the knowledge, Nancy. I'd love to hear from you. Do you have a comment about the episode or the pod in general? Why don't you drop me a line at theperrypod@gmail.com. Next time, Perry-o, oh Perry-o, wherefore art thou, Perry-o? Perry goes the budget theater route. In this case of disappointed dreams, pay-for-play character actresses filling in as leading ladies, and Perry using words like proscenium. It's the case of the ancient Romeo. Join us, won't you? Until then, this is Jonathan Searcy saying, keep on walking that Park Avenue beat!